I was just thinking, what is one of the biggest challenges of our lives? And that challenge is to be able to live in the actuality of life. If you notice, most of us, if not all of us, get so bogged down with the word that has been attributed to us, or we find ourselves affiliated with a word that was used by a friend or wife or a girlfriend or mentor or whomever. And it affects us so negatively due to a meaning that that word could have had. But all because we live in a world of perception rather than in the actuality of the world, actuality of life, in the present moment. And when we perceive things, it means contrary to what was meant or said. Often, maybe it was said purposely in a negative way, but often it is a misunderstanding, or it grabs you in a negative way, and that's because you interpret it in a perception world. You perceive the meaning of it and interpret it in such a way that it wasn't meant at all by the person who uttered it. So the problem is not what he or she uttered that has given you a certain comparison or affiliation to a characteristics that is not of your liking or approval. It's because you were not observing what was said as what it could mean for that possible situation. Instead, you go to a perception world and perceive what was said, which could go in many different tangents. And every one of those tangents have a propensity to have a negative meaning or effect on you. And then your ego, your image, is tarnished according to what you expect your image to be and feel it is. So one of the most important things in life is to be able to separate actuality, observing, than the world of perception, and instead of observing, perceiving, and not seeing things in the context that was said because of the interpretation and the involvement of the perception, intervention of perception. So why is it that we perceive things? Because we want to try to protect what image we have of ourselves, and we find anything that attacks that image that we have of ourselves, which is in most cases a righteous image. By trying to protect it, we lose sight of what it could have so possibly meant in a very benign way, and the protection goes way out deep in the perception world and interprets it as it wasn't meant to be. But there are possibilities of interpretation in the perception world in so many different ways that could be seemingly tarnishing the image that you have of yourself. And that's what hurts you. Brings your mood down, you get upset at your girlfriend or your boyfriend, you consider them having changed your mood, disrespecting you, or meant to harm you or attack you, while that person, your boyfriend or girlfriend or friend or mentor or boss or whatever it was only trying to communicate one shortcomings of his or her due to some experience that had hurt her before, and now trying to protect herself or himself by saying, I'm not that what was referred to me once at a certain circumstance with a friend or a foe or a boss or a mentor or work situation or whatever else it may be. An injustice that was done to him or her had hurt her, and when she herself or he herself perceives what you might have said, which was all benign and positive, but it has triggered a trauma that was created for him or her in the past via some other experience, and she's trying to protect, to separate herself from that kind of a stigma or that kind of a interpretation of her character or her abilities or her intentions. And for that reason, she doesn't see what was said as it was said, in the context that was said. Instead, in the world of perception, she rises to protect herself against what was uttered towards her unfairly, unjustly, and disrespectfully. And you wouldn't at that time focus on the trigger that has caused her to say that. Instead, you think he or she has said something to hurt you, or should have thought it through before something like that could have come out of her mouth or his mouth. And these are what we should be aware of in our judgment of that what was hurting us, or that what was seemingly unjust, and we feel that was purposefully said to us as an unjust effect or intention. But if we think deeper, we could actually see the trauma that he or she is trying to get away from by making sure that you would not judge her like he or she was judged once before. Even though irrelevant situations, but that is what she's trying to present to you, that she is of higher character, that once she was judged, but instead it would disrespect you because you don't see this, and you go to the perception world and you see utterings and interpretations which is totally unrelated to her or his, your friend's intention by what he or she uttered. Let's try our best to observe for what it is right that moment in the actuality, and not to perceive and interpret it as a perception of something that it could be possible in the perception world. So many other negative things could represent what is not really true about what was said in the actual world. I'll talk to you soon.